Our administrative law judge, Molly McBride, will call the speakers' names one by one. After I've filled the front row, I will let the public officials speak first, since they will be speaking for a larger constituency. I will ask that people remain orderly. I understand that people have strong feelings about the issue that we're going to discuss this afternoon, but if we can limit the amount of applause and/or comments, it will allow more speakers an opportunity to make comments. So please be considerate of your neighbors and of those who may feel differently than yourselves. At this time, I'll have Molly McBride read the rules for the hearing.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Molly McBride, and I'm an administrative law judge with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. I'll be presiding over this afternoon's hearing. The purpose of this hearing is to receive public comment on the revised draft SGEIS, the proposed high-volume hydraulic fracturing regulations, and the proposed SGEIS permit. I work in the New York State DEC's Office of Hearings and Mediation Services, which is a separate office within the department. It is separate from program staff, separate from counsel's office, and separate from the regional office. The purpose of my office is to conduct hearings such as this one. Today's hearing is to receive public comment, unsworn public comment regarding this matter. It is not a question and answer session. The comments received here today will form part of the record for the review of the proposed regulations, the draft permit, and the revised draft SGEIS. All oral and written comments received by December 12, 2011 will be adopted and made a part of the record of the legislative public hearing. Accordingly, if you speak at the hearing today or you submit written comments with respect thereto, it is not necessary that you speak at any other hearing. Equal weight is given to oral and written comments. There will be an additional legislative hearing here this evening, and there will also be one more session tomorrow, November 30th, from 1 to 4 and 6 to 9 in New York City at the Tribeca Theater. Anyone who wishes to speak today must fill out a speaker card. The cards are located outside the auditorium at the tables. If you have not yet filled out a card and wish to speak, please go do that. Speakers will be taken in the following order: elected federal officials, federal agencies, state elected officials, county executives, county legislators, city, town, or village mayors, and then citizens who will be called in the order that their cards were received. Your name will be called when it is your turn to speak. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Please correct me. Please come up to the microphone in the front of the room, state your name for the record, and if you are representing a group, please identify the group that you represent. In order to allow everyone an opportunity to make their comment here today, I am asking that each speaker limit his or her remarks to 3 minutes. Speakers are encouraged to submit lengthy statements in writing and provide only a summary of their comments here today. If necessary, if you go over your 3 minutes, I will ask you to conclude your comments. My priority here today is to get as many comments as possible on the record, so I will remind you when your 3 minutes are up. When you make your statement, please speak loudly, slowly, and clearly. As you can see, we have a court reporter here this afternoon who is taking a record of the proceedings. If I can't hear you, then that means the court reporter cannot hear you, and your statements will not be recorded accurately. My priority is to get an accurate record of every comment being made here today in the auditorium. This is an emotional issue, and I appreciate that, but if someone is speaking and applause start or the audience begins making comments during that person's comments, the court reporter will not be able to make an accurate record. So I appreciate that this is an emotional issue, but I'm going to ask you to please hold your applause or your comments during the speakers, and please show all speakers the respect and courtesy that you would want when making your own comments. If you are reading your comments from a script, I would ask that you please hand it to me afterwards or put it up here on the stage. I will then give that to the court reporter to use in making the transcript again so that we have the most accurate record of your comments made here today. If you do not wish to make an oral statement, or if we are not able to call your card before the hearing concludes today, you may submit a written statement, and there are comment sheets available in the back outside the auditorium for that purpose. Again, equal weight is given to oral and written comments. Because we have people that were not able to get into the room for the start of the hearing, if you make your statement or you've heard some speakers and you're able to leave the hearing room to allow other people to come in, we would appreciate that so that everyone gets an opportunity to attend the hearing. Before we begin, I would ask that everyone please silence their cell phones so that we don't have any disruptions during the hearing as well. I'm now going to begin calling the elected officials, and then we will call the remainder of the speakers. Our first speaker is David Sager.
I actually, unusually for me, I didn't prepare anything. I am currently the District 1 legislator for Sullivan County. I represent the towns of Tustin, Coshecton, Delaware, and Bethel, really part of the heart of the Marcellus Shale play in this region. My concern from day one has been public safety, our environment, and the nature of our communities. This is a multifaceted issue that I really don't feel has been appropriately addressed with the, even the updated SGEIS comments. The reality is that we have no clue as to what the socioeconomic impacts are for the community at large. We don't have a good idea of what the potential environmental impacts are for our community, and this is something that's going to change the face of the region. I sincerely, as I have requested before, believe that it is entirely imperative that a cumulative impact study, both on the socioeconomic impacts as well as the environmental and health impacts, which I don't believe have been appropriately addressed by any of the documents currently, needs to be performed before we should proceed forward. My current representative at the state level has loves to use the term that let's put science before politics, but it's clearly not a strong statement when you're not willing to actually do some scientific study and make sure you're getting down to the nitty-gritty of this. There is more to individual landowner rights. Our aquifers are at risk, our well water is at risk. In the future, those things are going to be far more important than a play on natural gas. If it is going to be done, we need to know, before you open Pandora's box, we need to fully know the potential risks that are going to happen to our communities, and we need to appropriately mitigate them. And I still do not believe that those risks are being mitigated to their fullest potential. Just as the large property owner or the farmer who has a lot of acreage believes that they have mineral rights, the small landowner also has equal mineral rights and the ability to say whether they do or don't want certain things happening on their property. And the reality is with the inclusion in the spacing units of 60%, you're taking away individual rights from many, many property owners. Please, you cannot open this box until you know what's inside and the possible risks and effects of it. I implore you, please use prudence. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Susan Zimet. Susan Zimet.
Hi, I'm Susan Zimet, a four-term Ulster County legislator and town supervisor-elect of New Paltz. For those of us protecting our precious water, quality of life, and the character of our great state of New York, we see this as a David and Goliath battle. The DEC and Governor Cuomo are the line in the sands to what the future of this great state will look like. We're being told the DEC will base their decision on science. We're being told that the state will only proceed if they can guarantee that hydrofracking can be done safely and our water protected. We're also being told that New York City and Syracuse need not worry. We'll exempt your watershed. We won't let anything endanger your water. But the rest of you, oh well, we'll attempt to give you strong regulations, so don't worry. So New York City gets protection of water, and we get casinos, jails, and hydrofracking. It is ironic that the New York City DEP is about to take on a major economic investment in our region, the long-awaited and critically important tunnel replacement. Then artificial boundaries will be put in place, underground explosions will take place deep underground, and I guess we're supposed to cross our fingers and hope that the explosions do not interfere with the integrity of the tunnel replacement. This is a really, really serious issue, and we take it very seriously in Ulster County. Getting into the specifics of the DGIS, a major flaw is the continued failure to conduct a proper cumulative impact analysis. The study still has not made the case for a reasonable worst-case scenario built upon which you can mitigate the factors. There's no health assessment. There's no adequate assessment of the impact to local roads and bridges. There's no comprehensive focused plan to analyze the cumulative impact on build-out of the gas wells. And the impact on rental prices or sales of our homes in our area is not included. Little mention is how fracking will devalue the property and there are no remedies. And I was in a meeting in New York City with someone who was looking for property up in Sullivan County. He asked me how fracking was moving along, and he basically said he stopped looking in Sullivan County. He's now looking in Connecticut because he will not come up here as long as fracking is on the table. We can't even sell our homes under normal circumstances, and fracking has now taken away that option. Finally, when reading the statements from the industry, what is very discouraging is how all they talk about is the impact the regulations will have on their profits. You never see any real concern for the safety of our drinking water or any concern for the impact on the local communities. They basically are all very, very upset about the regulations, about the environmental regulations, about the ban on New York City and Syracuse watershed. It seems that their concerns are not the same as the everyday people, but unfortunately, they have the deep pockets. They own the elected officials, not us local elected officials, but statewide, and we're fighting an uphill battle, David and Goliath. So we understand that you guys have a major, major task ahead of you. We understand that this is a very, very difficult emotional issue, but as the people of New York State and as representatives of the people we represent, we implore the DEC to please put us first.
Thank you. Hector Rodriguez. Hector Rodriguez.
Talk about a tough act to follow. My name is Hector Rodriguez. I'm a four-term Ulster County legislator, also representing New Paltz. At the end of the day, I'm a lifelong resident of the Hudson Valley. We take for granted clean drinking water, something that we've always been able to advertise throughout the entire country, the quality of our drinking water. Fracking is no less a threat to every single person in my county in terms of having available clean drinking water. We don't have Marcellus shale as much, but we do have Utica shale, and that is another potential source for fracking. At the end of the day, local officials are depending on the state to be able to make decisions that impact us with regards to our drinking water. We do not have local control. We do not have the ability to provide local zoning that would stop fracking. We are relying very specifically on the DEC to use the best science available to protect us. And I'm really afraid at this point that the DEC hasn't used the best science, and you haven't allowed for a proper comment period. So at the end of the day, we are relying on you. And if we can't rely on the state of New York, then who can we rely on? Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Chipman.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. My name's Carl Chipman. I'm the supervisor of the town of Rochester in Ulster County. We're a town of about 7,300 people in a rural area, and yes, we're on the fringe. We do have Marcellus shale. We also have Utica shale and other formations. So what we're speaking about today could vitally affect my town. I'm at a moral dilemma right now as the supervisor of a town. Part of my job is to protect the health, the safety, the welfare of the people of my town. Also to keep a standard of quality of life there. I'm not so sure that the study by the DEC has actually adequately answered certain questions as far as the environmental soundness of fracking or the socioeconomic impacts of fracking. So here I am, I have to protect my town, but at the same time, the rule of law, when I take an oath of office, and I'm going into my third term as supervisor, says I have to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the state of New York, which means that the DEC actually has control over fracking. It's mining, okay? And it's in my town. And I really have a concern because I know for sure certain issues that I've dealt with the DEC recently, it's been hard, I've been hard pressed to find DEC people there to help. The DEC's been gutted by the governor. They don't have the people, and they're going to regulate fracking and protect my town? I don't think so, to be honest with you. Now, on the other hand, I'm looking at a practical level. My town has the second most road mileage in Ulster County. We have over 122 miles of roads. I know from the floods of Irene and Lee, when traffic was diverted off Route 209, what happened to my secondary roads? They were torn up in no time by traffic. What the heck do you think's going to happen to my town when these trucks start rolling with gas and water and everything else on there? That's a heck of a problem. They're going to rip up my roads, and if they don't rip up my roads, what happens when a school bus is coming down the road? My roads are too narrow. So you say, oh, the gas companies are widening the roads. Oh, how are they going to do that? Eminent domain? My people, our town only controls 25 feet from the center of the road over, okay? I'm not going to take somebody else's property because I do believe in property rights. And speaking of property rights, we have to look at this. If we have the threat of contaminated water, well, and you want to fracking on your property, that's fine, but you know what? Water moves. It moves down to your neighbor, okay? So we have to think about our neighbors. So I ask you to please take the time into consideration and really think twice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chipman. James Greer.
Hello, my name is Jim Dreyer. I'm supervisor in the town of Fremont on the western end of Sullivan County. Judge McBride, Commissioner Martens, and DEC panel, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. 3.5 years of study and deliberation. It's now time to move forward. All we need to do is study New York State's track record for natural gas development. We are home to the first gas and oil well drilled in the United States, first gas and oil pipeline constructed in the United States, and over 75,000 gas and oil wells drilled. We have been using the hydraulic fracturing process here in New York State since 1948, with 5,000 fracked wells in Chautauqua County alone. All this without one single major incident. Thanks to New York's DEC for developing and enforcing the most strict rules and regulations of any state in the United States of America. New York has proven it can be done safely. What are we waiting for? The Dow to shrink below 5,000? A gallon of gas to cost $7 or $8? Don't think it can happen. There are probably isn't a person in this room who just a few short years ago would have believed that the price of a gallon of gas would pass the $2 mark. When I first started commuting to New York City in the early 1950s, the price of gas in New Jersey was 7 gallons for $1. If we don't move forward now, the price will probably be $7 a gallon soon. By making use of this natural resource right now, we can turn our economy around at no cost to the taxpayers. It's not too late.
Please.
What's wrong with drilling gas on wells on town, county, or state land with the profits easing the burden on all taxpayers? What's wrong with drilling gas wells on school property with the profits helping to finance our school system and ease the burden of all taxpayers? I wholeheartedly respect each and everyone's position that don't want drilling on their land. Just don't tell me that I can't on mine. This is still the United States of America, the land of the free. Tourism, construction, agriculture, our economic mainstays are all in a submissive decline across this empire state. We need to address this situation now. Governor Cuomo, New York State legislators, Commissioner Joe Martens, and the DEC, you can fix and turn around New York's broken economy. The ball is in your court. Just remember, it's still not too late. Thank you.
I'm going to again remind the audience that I have to ask for your respect for all speakers. Please refrain from commenting during any speakers because I want every speaker to receive the respect they deserve from this audience. Our next speaker is Keith Capolauza. I apologize if I'm reading that wrong. Thank you.
My name is Keitha Kapuya. I'm the supervisor of the town of Meredith in Delaware County. We have 1,529 citizens. I'm also on the county legislature, of course, and which has more than 47,000 residents. There were recently 2 surveys done, one local in the town, which showed 3/4 of the town very much concerned about hydrofracking, and a national one was done in the county, which showed the same numbers, so I actually represent quite a few people. The problem I see as the greatest problem is that there is no study of the cumulative effects both on health and on the environment and on socioeconomic problems. I've read immense amounts of material. I also went to Bradford County and spent a day. I spoke to officials there who were dealing with the problems of drilling. We spoke to Chesapeake. We went all over a rig. And I can say that the possibilities are pretty daunting. And I've worked with Seeker for many years. I was the chair of the planning board for many years in my town, and I know that it's a wonderful regulation. One takes the worst case scenario and one works to protect the community. And I think that not to do that as vigorously as possible is to open the door to terrible things. The consequences of mistakes in hydrofracking are immense, and they really have to be studied carefully. You don't have to invent the wheel to do it. When you just study the other 34 states in which hydrofracking is practiced now, there are accidents everywhere. That doesn't mean that they're not preventable, but we have to find a way to prevent them. There may be other ways of other fluids that can be used, I don't know, but nobody's putting the money into that, and I hope that the DEC will be able to do that work and find out what we need to know. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thomas Bose.
I am Thomas Bose, the supervisor of the town of Callicoon, located in western end of Sullivan County. Thank you, Governor Cuomo, Commissioner Martens, and the department staff for making the public hearings available to the residents of not only the southern tier, but the entire state of New York. I consider the hearings, as well as all of the input received, a privileged necessity. I'm sure today will be marked with passionate testimony from my fellow elected officials, landowners, business owners, and for many who feel threatened in one way or another by the possibility of natural gas extraction. It will be the responsibility of the state of New York, and more precisely the Department of Conservation, to separate the passionate emotion from the science and rationally based facts regarding this industry and the abundance of this essential natural resource. At the beginning of the year, I also testified at a public hearing before the Delaware River Basin Commission. I explained that as a third-generation dairy farmer, I rely heavily on my land and its ability to produce quality feed for my cattle. Like every other farmer, I need my land. Therefore, I must take care of my land just as I take care of my cattle. I feel confident that the proposed regulations, along with the strict enforcement of these regulations, will allow our farmers, including myself, to do just that. However, just as I did before the DRBC, I respectfully request the department to consider once again the proposed setbacks and the more clearly defined bodies of water. As written, I believe these setbacks are too restrictive and may eliminate many opportunities to harvest a much-needed energy source. Please remember, regulate, don't eliminate. I've lived my entire life in Sullivan County and have never been more concerned for the future of the county and its residents. The newly elected legislature will be facing a $10 to $12 million deficit, state-mandated construction of a new $100 million jail, deteriorating infrastructure in immediate need of millions of dollars of repairs, one of the highest unemployment rates in the state, over 1,000 parcels of real estate currently in foreclosure, and property taxes that are already unaffordable by many. Without a new revenue source, we, the residents of Sullivan County, could be faced with a property tax increase of historic proportion. A little more than a half-century ago, a small, relatively unheard of electronics manufacturer had a distinct interest in developing a light manufacturing business here in Sullivan County. At that time, a small but influential group of hotel owners thwarted that attempt in fear that it would be detrimental to their already declining business. No one knows for sure what may have been, but one can only imagine what Sullivan County may be today had IBM located here instead of another county to our east. 3.5 years of research, studies, scientific findings, and we have yet to adopt regulations to allow safe, responsible gas drilling. Please, Governor Cuomo, Commissioner Martens, let us move forward, not only for the sake of Sullivan County and New York State, but our entire country. We need this energy source just as desperately as we need the jobs it would provide. Please don't allow another opportunity like IBM to slip away. Thank you.
Can I Joel Tyner? Joel?
Thank you. I represent Rhinebeck and Clinton in the Dutchess County Legislature. Just got elected to a 5th term. A lot of people may not be aware that there is frackable Utica shale in Dutchess County, in Poughkeepsie, Hyde Park, Red Hook, and Rhinebeck. And people may not be aware of this. Walter Hang of Toxics Targeting was on Democracy Now! A few years ago. I think it was November 10th of 2009. There's 270 different cases of fires, explosions, and wells being contaminated from natural gas drilling in New York State as it is right now already. Nobody in the media wants to report that. I'm asking you to delay no longer in reporting that. There are 270 different cases of fires, explosions, and wells being contaminated right now in New York State as it is already from natural gas drilling over the last 30 years. Even the New York Times has blacked that out. It's time for the media to do its job. It's time for the DEC to do its job. It's time for Commissioner Martens and Andrew Cuomo to stop being a puppet of Chesapeake Bay and the American Petroleum Institute. And I tell you what, ProPublica has also reported there are 1,000 different cases of groundwater contamination from fracking all across this country. 1,000 different cases. I'm 47, I'm about to be 48 years old. I remember back in the early 70s, the OPEC oil embargo, we were supposed to make a change to conservation, to energy efficiency, to solar and wind. Even with the rain out there, people should be aware that Germany has less sunlight than we do here in New York State, and they have solar all over. This is disgusting. This is an abomination what's going on. The New York Solar Jobs Act of 2011 would create 22,000 jobs, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about destroying the water we need to drink, and we're talking about destroying our economies. There is no bank, no mortgage company, no financial firm that wants to touch with a 10-foot pole any property that's had anything to do with a fracking lease. And all you have to do is go to toxicstargeting.com, frackaction.com. It's all there. I started a petition 3.5 years ago on this issue. There's 1,100 people that have signed on against this. This is an absolute abomination, an absolute abomination. And I just urge you to please wake up and smell the coffee before it's too late.
Thank you. Cora Edwards. Cora Edwards. Do we have Cora Edwards?
Good afternoon. My name is Cora Edwards, as you just said. I'm the Sullivan County Legislator-elect for District 6, which is Liberty and Hurleyville here in Sullivan County. My comments are directed to the inadequate mitigation, actually, measures regarding radioactivity. When I first read the SGEIS several years ago, I was disturbed and shocked that there was only one line referencing radioactive gases. Given the amount of literature that's out there regarding radioactive waste from hydrofracking and transportation. So I wasn't much happier, to be honest, when I saw that the one line had been expanded to a paragraph in the RD SGEIS. I think it's the job of the DEC to do a more thorough investigation on the potential negative impacts of radioactivity and radioactive waste. And this document fails miserably for the taxpayer by providing just 2 vague references. And I really am asking the DEC, as a taxpayer and as an elected official starting in January, for the DEC to not insult our intelligence and to do a proper job in this area of handling radioactive gases and radioactive waste, at least given the amount of radioactivity that's known, and the people who have to handle that. And I want this to be expanded in any future survey that's done. Thank you.
That concludes the public officials. We'll now start with the public. Our administrative law judge will call their names. If you exceed your 3 minutes, I will remind you with a small bell here, and if that does not suffice, the judge will ask you to please. Also, I wanted to mention that after you speak, we would remind you that we would ask that you make room for your neighbors who are still waiting out in the rain. You can also exit through the door immediately to my left here that is open.
Thank you. I'm going to again remind you to state your name when you come up to the microphone, and if you're speaking for a group, please identify the group that you represent. Our first speaker is Albert Larsen.
Thank you for permitting me to speak. My name is Al Larsen. I'm one of 4 negotiators representing the Rural Bethel Landowners Coalition, mostly in Western Bethel. I am a retired superintendent of schools. I was raised a country farm boy here in Sullivan County. I support drilling for natural gas for the people of our area, our state, as well as the survival of our nation. I support the safe drilling techniques instituted by the gas companies over the past 3 years, and also support the SGEIS report recently drawn up by the DEC. Realize, in Texas, their beef cattle graze around the drilling rigs. We eat their beef and they drink their water. In Kansas, they have thousands of acres of corn with drilling rigs in the middle. We eat their corn and they drink their water. In North Dakota, they are drilling and have gone from high unemployment to the lowest unemployment rate in the nation, and they drink their water. Here in Sullivan County, a friend lives on under $1,200 a month. He can no longer work. Of the 7 dairy farmers I know, 2 have sold out. They couldn't afford their feed bills. And the other 5 are on the verge of collapse. Bulldozers and backhoes are idle. Carpenters without work. Teachers laid off. 25% of our people are either unemployed or working part-time. Teachers laid off. 20% of the children in our county are living below the poverty level. 1,400 properties on the tax sales for this year alone. In church this Sunday, the pastor asked the congregation for comments and if anyone needed a prayer. One person asked for the prayers for a particular family. The husband had lost his job, and they were going to lose their home. In this county, our schools are about 50% smaller than 40 years ago. Thousands have left New York State due to it being the highest tax state in the nation and no employment. Small businesses collapse, and our industry has disappeared. The infrastructure of our nation is in desperate need of repair. Sullivan County is the second poorest county in our state. New York State is $9 billion in the hole. The federal government is $15 trillion in the hole. Our nation was built on mining. If we are to survive as a state and a nation, we must be permitted to drill safely. With drilling, jobs will come, and we will have a chance to prosper. Look at North Dakota. Department of Environmental Conservation, you have worked long and hard over the past 3 years. You've developed a plan second to none. If any